Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So there's a lot going on in the rooming house, and my plan was to go ahead and get the playroom all decorated and set up before the babies came. But if you've been following along, you know both of the babies were born in the last episode, so we still need to get this playroom up and running. Now this door and the parquet floors both need to be stained, and while they're drying, I can be working on something else. Now there is stain in that little baby food jar. I kind of separate a little bit at a time because, dolls, I'm pretty reckless when it comes to my paint and stains and things like that. So in order not to ruin the larger batch, I can ruin smaller batches a little at a time. So let me go ahead and open this murky jar of stain and get these floors done. Now this is that lovely vintage flooring that I bought from the Dollhouse estate sale a couple years ago. And you can see here I'm just testing this stain to see what kind of color I have. So it's definitely contaminated, but it'll still get the staining job done. Now, my original idea was to really exaggerate the shadowing effect of the parquet floor. So I started out with one of the corners trying to do every other one in the stain and then leave the second one unfinished. And here I did a couple squares so you can kind of see what I mean. And in my mind, doing every other one with stain would exaggerate the shadowing effect. And dolls, when I say shadowing effect, I'm more or less talking about the three-dimensional look because of the geometric shapes and the contrast of the direction of the little sticks. They kind of give a cube effect, but it's not anything serious, but I thought it would just make the floor look a little bit more dramatic. So now that I'm done with that one, I'm going to allow it to dry and work on this door. Now, dolls, I need to say this, although I don't practice it on a regular basis, you should use nitrile gloves when you're working on projects like this. You shouldn't be touching the stain and getting stain on your hand and your fingers. I am not using gloves right now. I was just kind of freestyling, but it is always recommended that you protect your hand and skin anytime you're using products like this. And take your time, work slowly, and try not to splash the stain. Now, dolls, in this frame, I was working on the beadboard. Now, I didn't go into a full demonstration of how I made my beadboard because I've made beadboard multiple times here on Little Gretchen's workshop. So I will leave a link in the description for how I make my beadboard. Now, the one thing that is different about this particular beadboard is that I have a different type of coffee stir stick. It's more of like a bamboo type stick, but it works really well. Now, I'm going to use a technique, and I'm going to use the word that I heard Ara Bentley use when she was working on one of her builds. I'm going to use a Dollhouse Band-Aid. Now, my Dollhouse Band-Aid is not as neat and orderly as the one Ara used. I'm just slapping some excess glue on the back of this panel, and I'm going to use a couple pieces of brown paper bag to connect the two individual pieces to make it one continuous panel so that when I install it in the house, I won't have to splice it. Now, I would recommend that if you use the Dollhouse Band-Aid technique that you be orderly and don't use excess glue. Now, here you can see it from the other side, and I'm just kind of making sure there's no gaps between the pieces. So I have a nice full long panel, so I can cut to size in whatever project I'm working on. Now, these are the coffee stir sticks that I got from Amazon, and I will put a link in the description. And they're really nice. Like I said, they're kind of like a bamboo. They're not the birch wood sticks. They're a little bit different because my daughter actually ordered these for me. And at first I didn't think that I would like them, but after looking at them, the unstained wood, it almost has a golden tone to it, which I really think I like. Now here I am evening out the sticks on the end because I didn't measure when I put them together. I just kind of cut them. And even though I'm using some really dull scissors, it's cutting right through them. Now, dolls, you just need it to be reasonably even. It doesn't have to be perfect for a project like this. So let me show you what I mean. So here we are back on the third floor of the rooming house Dollhouse, and I've just kind of laid the beadboard against the wall. Now I will have to cut an angled piece for right there, but overall it fits really nicely. So in this next frame here, you can see my parquet floor, and staining every other one really does make it look more dimensional. But you can see along the edge of the beadboard, it's not perfect, but by the time I add the wallpaper and the wood trim, you won't see any of that. I'm really excited about the children having a dedicated place in the rooming house to play. So there is the matter of closing up that floor. And here I have some really nice pieces of cardboard that are kind of shaped like that hole in the floor. So I kind of held the cardboard up near the hole, and then I went back to my table to cut it. Now, dolls, it would be a best practice to measure and then cut, but I eyeballed it and I was pretty close. So I just needed to trim it a little bit and double the thickness. So I went back to my table and I actually did use the ruler this time just to kind of guide my blade. And the cut was almost perfect. So I tucked it in to see how I liked the fit. And then I went back to my table to cut the additional pieces to make it match the thickness of the floor or ceiling. So, dolls, I honestly got tired of working on that and I went on to add the doorknobs to the door. Now, before I added the doorknobs, I did want to age them a little bit. So I'm just kind of sticking them down to some tape that I've put on a little board. And I'm using a thin mixture of alcohol and acrylic paint. And this is to age and darken the metal. Because when you purchase this hardware or doorknobs, it's a really bright brass color. I really like my things to look aged. And I'm using black, green, and brown to give it the look that I'm trying to achieve. Now, dolls, this is one of those projects that you can take as much or as little time as you want working on it. But I really didn't spend a lot of time on this. I just mixed the alcohol with the acrylic paint colors I wanted. And as it dried, I kind of knocked a little bit off of the doorknob because I wanted to do something different there. So after I was satisfied with the look of the key plate, I went on to add a little dark brown paint to the knobs. And when I was done adding the brown, I was really pleased with that overall look. And it only took a few minutes for that to dry, and I went on and positioned them and added them to my door. And I was really happy with the look of it and the color, but I realized I was using matte brown paint, so it didn't have any type of shine. And dolls, just so you know, I used my Loctite super glue gel to attach the doorknobs. After the doorknobs were attached, this is a really teeny weeny detail, and it's not a big deal. It's almost probably not even noticeable, but it seemed like there was a lot of shine on the edge of the door plate, so I just drizzled some of my alcohol and paint mixture right along that edge. Now, dolls, I was sincerely done with this part of the project, but I got a little fixated on the doorknob. I really wanted to elevate the look of the doorknob and add a little distinction. So I put a little drop of Dimensional Magic on each doorknob and just kind of spread it out a little bit so it would drop over the sides. Now, Dimensional Magic is really great for adding shine or a little elevated dimension. It doesn't need a lamp or anything for it to cure. It kind of has a gel effect, not to make it look like glass, but just to make it look more round and more doorknobby. So now here I am back at closing up the hole in the floor, and I did use a couple pieces of cardboard, but then I still had a little bit of space that wasn't filled. So I cut a piece of 1/16 inch thick basswood to the same size of the pieces to close the hole to give it a more firm, rigid layer. So I guess it would be like a subfloor in the floor. So here's a quick flashback to my original concept for the playroom. And now here it is as it stands right now. So I haven't installed the beadboard, but I did put the wallpaper in. I just kind of want you dolls to see how it's going to look. It's cut to size. And I'm really excited about how this is really going to look. And if you look really closely, this is some really old vintage paper that I got in a vintage lot. Now, those are the nails. I'm going to have to cover that up with some type of decorative item. But I really love the wallpaper print. It has like children on it, and it's a nice cream color, so it does look very vintage. I love the parquet floor, and yeah, I'm just really excited about getting this finished up for the children so they'll have a dedicated place to play in the rooming house. So I do need to prepare some trim and some baseboards, so let me do that. Now, dolls, I used to buy official like baseboards and crown molding and things like that. I've gotten to the point I really like these thin strips that I get from Hobby Lobby, and the thinner they are, the better, because they don't take up space in the room. And I did have to cut that small piece so it'll fit that little custom pointed part that's inside on the corner of the roof. But here I am. I've stained my piece of baseboard, and now I'm adding a coat of that linen colored paint. Now, I do like to stain the undercoat because I want it to look dark. I don't want it to look new and crisp and clean. I want it to look like an old house with dark stain that's been painted over. So here I am back in the playroom. I've installed my beadboard and I've added that little piece, and it's drying. The floor has been installed, and I'm really liking the way this looks, dolls. So let me show you what I did in the reading room. I had some old wallpaper that I didn't have plans for, and I took it all the way up, and I am going to add trim to this. But I want you to see how nice my floor turned out. I closed up the hole, and I filled in the gaps with that caulk that I was telling you, dolls, about. Let me show you. Now, it was perfect for filling in those gaps and making sure everything was nice and level, and now it's good and hard. It's flat, it's smooth, it's not tacky or rubbery feeling. So it's a perfect base for my floor. Now, it's easy to see from this angle there are a few places I need to touch up and smooth out on my beadboard, which are just places that I smudged or got glue residue on them. Which is not a big deal. I'll just paint over the little smudgy parts, but I figure by the time the children get through playing in here, it'll look like that anyway. But I'm really pleased with how the beadboard turned out and how nice and neat it is. I've added my trim or baseboard, which gracefully concealed my inconsistent cut. And I added really thin coffee stir sticks as my chair rail. So here I'm going to touch up those smudgy spots. And this is my completed playroom, dolls. I think it turned out really nice. And I think the children of the rooming house community will be really happy to have two dedicated rooms. One room to play and the other room to read. And really quick, let me show you how that doorknob turned out. To me, painting it brown and adding a little shine to it really made it look familiar. So I'm here in the reading room, and I just want to give you a look from a different perspective. This is a glimpse at the window that's in the room. Now, from this angle, you can see the door, but I don't want you to be concerned that the wallpaper doesn't line up. All those little imperfections will be less noticeable when I add the trim. Now, if this is your first time watching and you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and always look for me on Mondays after 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll be alerted anytime I upload a new video. Before I go, I want to say a warm welcome to all my new subscribers. I'm so grateful you've chosen to be one of my precious dolls. And a big virtual hug to all my longtime subscribers who've ridden the wave with me. And I'm also grateful for those of you who watch but you haven't subscribed. I appreciate you as well. And until next time, I'm looking forward to seeing you all right here on Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.